Did the movies of the Weimar Republic, in particular Blue Angel and Pandora's Box, help to liberate female sexuality or entrench discrimination against female sexuality? This project will not consider the important technical aspects of movie making, but will consider the meaning of the overall message these two particular movies conveyed to its general viewing public. The technical aspects are the holy grail of movie making, but the message portrayed through the storyline that a movie conveys to its viewer is the ultimate basic purpose. Female sexuality has been a moral problem for white civilization since the creation of man in the paradise. The question is, what was the understanding of female sexuality that a normal member of the public would have carried away with him or her after viewing these two movies? Defining the critical concepts. To be able to make a truthful judgment whether or not the movies Blue Angel and Pandora's Box help to entrench an oppressed view of female sexuality as per a centuries-old white patriarchal moral value system or help liberate female sexuality, one first have to clearly define the meaning of a few critical concepts. It is a problem in the English language that words often have different meanings, and also that the meaning of a word changes according to social political changes. I base the following explanations on the Encyclopedia Britannica and on the Oxford Conscience Dictionary. Firstly, sexuality. Encyclopedia Britannica defines sexuality as relating to the propagation of the race and the survival of the species. This definition is limited, and I would like to add a quote from the famous Italian erotic filmmaker Tinto Brass.
It is not true, although civilized culture claims the opposite, that the only purpose of sex is procreation. Sex also serves to give great pleasure, and nature, that is wiser than culture, has linked the duty of procreation to pleasure. Without the pleasure aspect, procreation will be in great jeopardy.
Secondly, society, the aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. This definition is limited, and I should like to add that it is a group of people that define the group by a set of rules and distinguish between us and them, thus members and non-members of the society. Thirdly, male society, males being the members and females being the non-members of society. Fourthly, discrimination. Discrimination is to recognize a distinction. This definition is limited, and I would like to add that discrimination transcends the recognition of differences by applying different rules and advantages to the recognized distinctions. Fifthly, legal discrimination. Legal discrimination is written down on some or other law book, including the Bible. Sixthly, subjective discrimination. This is discrimination that is no longer written in a law book, but exists in the minds of the people. And lastly, the Femme Fatale, an attractive and seductive woman. It must be noted that this is an English interpretation of the French word which means a disastrous woman. In German, Femme Fatale is defined as a woman with charm, intellect, and an extravagant way of life. Her seductive character might lead to the doom of her partners. The Bible has played a pivotal role in white man's society for more than 2,000 years. The Old Testament, that is a patriarchal document, has several references to women of questionable morals. Examples are Eve, Delia, and Jezebel. In her book, Evil by Design, the author Elizabeth Memon asks a critical religious question.
If we believe that God created the universe and also Adam and Eve, then we must automatically believe in a deity that controls destiny. So was Eve destined to sin, or did she sin by choice? Was she thus a femme fatale because she succumbed to destiny, or because she brought about the downfall of mankind?
Elizabeth Memon goes further to state,
whereas the image of Eve represented sexuality and motherhood, Christianity sanitized religion with the image of Mary, a woman whose sexuality was completely denied.
Marianne Duane, in her book Femme Fatale, states,
insofar as cynicism involves an active suspicion of romantic ideals and the sexual identities they dictate, and an interrogation of the mores and morals of a patriarchal order, it would seem to ally itself with a feminist enterprise.
Yet cynicism, if it would be described as a form of reflective consciousness or knowledge, is a knowledge which nevertheless accepts or resigns itself to the status quo. Hence, cynicism as an operational strategy for feminist theory has its limits. And historically, within the limitations of a modern, cynical consciousness, the image of the woman played a crucial, and not always a positive, role. Nowhere perhaps is this more evident than in Pabst's cinematic construction of the figure Lulu in Pandora's box. Duane criticizes feminism for being too lenient in its quest for equality, and states categorically that the image of women have been portrayed as not positive in terms of ruling the patriarchal order. This gentle attack on the values of patriarchal order by Duane gains validity in Siegfried Kracauer's attitude when he writes in his book From Caligari to Hitler about Pandora's box that according to Pabst film,
Lulu is a woman who gets driven by insatiable sexual lust and through her passion destroys everybody and everything around her.
Krakauer goes further and writes about the movie The Blue Angel that, driven by moral indignation and unconcealed sexual envy,
the foolish professor dared to enter Lola's cave. But instead of ending the useful play, he gets caught up himself in the magic of Lola, so as to share her bedroom with her and even propose to her. As a result, he has to quit his job as professor at the school. His life turns into the nightmare of a deadly wounded animal.
Krakauer discriminates against female sexuality by attacking female insatiable sexual lust, while defending male sexual patheticness with the image of a deadly wounded animal. Analysis of the Blue Angel in terms of sexual discrimination by a patriarchal order against female sexuality. The Blue Angel is a wonderful study of a man in a strange society of a specific place and time. The appearance of the woman is simply used to create the crisis in the man's life. The fact that the woman is then labeled as a femme fatale figure is purely the consequence of the discriminating rules of that social order. The clock at the front of the gymnasium sets and reinforces by repetition the overall scene. The statues of frustrated little men walking around the clock highlighted the burden of chronological time invented by the white man's system, where the slog of job satisfaction is more important than experiencing love in all its facets. The behavior of the students and teaching staff put into perspective the values of a severely patriarchal society. Some elite boys are prepared for the professions by an all-male staff, while no girls are seen anywhere.
That is the... Halt! Sie können ja noch nicht einmal den englischen Artikel aussprechen. Sprechen Sie mir nach.
The only women in this movie are either housekeepers or ladies working in a low-class drinking place with a cabaret. It is clear that the atmosphere in the all-boys school is sterile. At night, the boys seek company of women and visit the Blue Angel. This act of the boys is taboo in high society. It is clear that the freedom of spirit, the interaction and the love of life of the people in the Blue Angel are tolerated by the social elite, but regarded as something only the lower classes do. For the social elite, regarding themselves as men of honor is regarded as inappropriate to mix with the people and especially the women of that kind.
Die Künstlerin Lola Lola.
Sind Sie vielleicht von der Polizei?
Sie irren, mein Fräulein. Ich bin Dr. Emanuel Rath, Professor am hiesigen Gymnasium.
Deswegen können Sie ruhig in meiner Garderobe einen Hut abnehmen.
In this movie, the director, Josef von Sternberg, portrays the lead figure, Professor Emanuel Rath, as a rather pathetic man, but very conscious of his esteemed position in society. He teaches at a gymnasium for boys, although his teaching methods leave a lot to be desired.
Sie können ja noch nicht einmal den englischen Artikel aussprechen. Sprechen Sie mir nach. The.
The.
The. The. The.
The.
The.
The.
The.
The.
Zähne auseinander. The.
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 Setzen. Aufsatzhefte heraus.
However, a generally accepted law of life is that if a respected member of any social order should transcend any of that order's taboos, then such a member will be excommunicated.
Ich kann ja manches verstehen. Aber wie kann man seine ganze Zukunft gefährden wegen einer solchen Person?
Ich muss doch sehr bitten, Herr Direktor. Sie sprechen von meiner zukünftigen Frau.
Das kann doch wohl nicht Ihr Ernst sein.
Es ist mein vollständiger Ernst. Ich verbitte mir jede weitere Bemerkung.
Tut mir sehr leid, lieber Herr Kollege. Aber dann muss ich die Angelegenheit weitergeben.
All humans are captured in a battle between their irrational, subconscious minds that inherited certain aspects from their forefathers and foremothers, that are then developed purely as feelings or emotions, and their rational conscious minds that are directly linked to the five senses and scientific learning. Professor Rath's subconscious truth is personified by the wonderful clown, which is always in the background and who Professor Rath eventually becomes.
Männer umschwirren mich wie Motten um das Licht. Und wenn sie verbrennen, ja, dafür kann ich nicht.
Lola Lola is a cabaret dancer and actress at the local The Blue Angel. Professor Rath discovers Lola Lola through some naughty postcard of her that he found on the schoolboys. She signs that she is a woman that only looks for love and then falls in love again.
Männer umschwirren mich wie Motten um das Licht. Und wenn sie verbrennen, ja, dafür kann ich nicht. Ich bin von Kopf bis Fuß auf Liebe eingestellt.
Her song predicts the future by telling the professor that the men gather around her as a sex symbol, like moths around a flame. But if they burn their wings, then she is not to blame. She eventually marries the professor after he has given up his position as respected professor. Jealousy is a human emotion that, like any dangerous poison, can be a potent, temporary aphrodisiac because of the excitement it creates, but also the ugliest of all demons. In love, there can never be any moral judgment of who the other person is or what the other person enjoys doing.
Jetzt habe ich nur die Zauberkünstler. Jawohl, ich bin ein Zauberkünstler. Jetzt fängt er wieder an mit der faulen Zauberei. Setz dich jetzt hin.
The police represents the eyes of the moral order. If you are a respected member of society, then your actions will always be watched closely by the agents of that moral order. Only artists have gained their freedom as they have extradited themselves from good society by rejecting security in favor of a life fully lived.
Verzeihen Sie, Herr Professor, aber die Polizei ist da. Polizei? Polizei? Man darf sie hier nicht finden. Ja, ich habe die Obrigkeit nicht zu fürchten. Sie nicht, aber wir. Verschwinden Sie schon, Herr Professor.
The so-called tragedy of Professor Rath was not that he fell in love with a strong woman that enjoyed all that life had to offer her, but that he could not understand that his apparent loss of power in the established society granted him freedom. His apparent loss of social power caused him apathy and depression, whereas a strong character man would have realized that freedom gained by breaking the rules of society could lead to spiritual growth and happiness. After all, a woman can only love a strong man and never a loser. Young men spend their lives trying to gain social status. When they are forced to discard those social achievements through scandal, bankruptcy, retrenchment, or forced retirement, then they need to face themselves honestly and not through the mirror of society. The world of society is harsh and secure. The microcosmos of the artist is free, gentle, and insecure. The death of Professor Rath in his old classroom can be interpreted as a token of death of the old values, and as a warning that the time to adapt or die has arrived. Lola Lola portrays a woman free in her mind and secure of the strength of her sexuality. She finds this strength through her art.
Nimm dich hinab vor blonden Frauen, sie haben so etwas Gewissen.
If anything, this movie was a wake-up call to the men out there that the world was changing and that they could no longer hide behind the centuries-old preconceived morals and values. Analysis of Pandora's box in terms of sexual discrimination by a patriarchal order against female sexuality. Pandora's Box is a thought-provoking movie. Not only does it reflect and challenge the dilemmas of how that society's class system values worked at the time, but went much further by also exploring the nature of human sexuality. Pabst's movie, Pandora's Box, was based on Frank Wedekind's play. The movie highlighted the fact that the secret erotic lives of most humans determine their destinies, and that the social taboos only enhance the desire aspect of relationships. I agree with Erich Rentschler when he writes in German Film and Literature that
the central thematic and fictional essence in Pabst's film is sexual desire. Male obsessions, repressed homosexuality, sadomasochism, an urge to possess, capture and fix, confront feminine androgyny and feminine identity in a play of presence and absence, masks and appearances in a spectacle and image as the expression of a freedom from all teleology and essentialism.
Although he is not the main character in the movie, Lulu's father, Szygolcs, plays the most important role in the story. He is obviously not from the upper class, and not much more than a tramp that must eat in the kitchen at his daughter's wedding. However, Lulu completely loves him, and he loves Lulu. Through their close father-daughter relationship, we come to understand Lulu's incredible nature. As Lulu's father, he does not place limitations on her, using her talents to make a living. He tries his best to create opportunities for her. He only gets angry with her once, and this is when it becomes obvious that she has forgotten the art of dancing that he has taught her as a child. For the rest, he looks after her and trusts her completely. It is clear that Lulu grew up underprivileged, but she is an incredibly loving female, giving the men she likes everything she has, such as money, jewelry, physical intimacy, emotional care, excitement and entertainment. She never regards riches more important than love, and does not stand back for ladies of superior class. She does not discriminate between male and female, rich or poor, and even returns the love shown to her by another woman. The emotions portrayed by the men around Lulu prove just what a difficult society it was that they lived in. Marriage was seen as a climbing of the social ladder, and to marry for love was regarded as suicide. The men in this movie are generally of weak character. The father-son jealousy is pathetic. The jealousy of the bridegroom is pathetic. The selling of his fiancée into prostitution is pathetic. The blackmailing of a woman is pathetic. Crying about forcing his beloved friend into prostitution while not making an effort to help is pathetic. It must be noted that when it comes to conflicts, men prefer violence and destruction. Thus, patriarchal societies are famous for killing when going to war, while women, on the other hand, prefer passive resistance, tantrums, and emotional politics. Matriarchal societies generally prefer variations, caprices, and the nuances of the human spirit to nuclear bombs and economical success. The climax of the movie is the final scene where Jack the Ripper kills Lulu. This scene reminds one of Georg Bataille's book Eroticism, and I quote,
"Human sexual activity is not necessarily erotic, but erotic it is whenever it is not rudimentary and purely animal. The truth of eroticism is treason. As soon as violence demands it, back will come the utter unreason without which the final burst of sensuous pleasure is impossible."
The final question. It is clear that the white patriarchal order was highly discriminating towards women. Female sexuality was enjoyed privately by the males of the elite classes as a taboo, and generally it was condemned by society. Personally, coming from a place where the society is predominantly matriarchal, where partial female nudity is normal, where the concept of the femme fatale was never heard of, where the purpose of men are either to be sugar daddies or procreative one-night stands, and where women can have as many children with as many men as they like and be highly respected for being successful mothers. I believe that the feminists made a philosophical mistake by fighting for equality. The fight for equality entrenched the patriarchal order by definition. It is true that the rules of the white patriarchal order have relaxed somewhat. However, that relaxation seems to be more beneficial to the males than to the females. Is it not true that in the modern white order, successful liberated women must behave like the men? And is it not true that the white patriarchal societies regard matriarchal societies as primitive? Then if so, is that not the biggest mistake that any society can make?